I am glad you are with us this morning. I'm glad if you're with us here in person, or I'm glad if you're with us on Zoom. I'm glad if you're watching us later on YouTube. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. This is a season for the lighting of candles and the telling of stories. Today is the 7th day of Hanukkah, a time to light candles and remember a small upstart army that defeated an empire, that held on to identity in the face of overwhelming efforts to erase it. And a miracle, whether you know the miracle as the light that kept burning or the unlikely victory. Today is also the second Sunday of Advent, the season when our Christian friends and neighbors and fellow congregants remember the waiting for Jesus to be born, and also imagine or look forward to the returning reign of love, whatever that might look like, and sit in the awareness that we are not yet where we want to be. Today, they light a candle for peace. And we will be joining them in a moment as we light our chalice, our symbol, our flame of truth in our cup of community. So come, let us gather. Come, let us remember the stories that matter. Come, let us build community and connections. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. I'm Gordon Bolar, member of the People's Church Sunday Services Committee, and I'd like to welcome you this morning, whether you're visiting online or the few that are here in person. We're hoping that soon we'll be able to get together and get to know each other better. For right now, we're doing what we're doing. People's Church is a member of a congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and it's part of a long tradition of liberal religion. And that means many things, but it also means that liberalism has a faith that although the path of progress is uncertain, if we work together, we can shape our church community and our community toward a better future. Today, there's a focus on healthy conflict and disagreement. And I'd like to welcome you this morning. Thank you for attending People's Church.
Between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Our reading for the chalice lighting this morning is In Wholeness by Sean Parker Dennison. There is no competition between this light and the darkness which holds it. Both the light and the darkness are holy. We light our chalice not to defeat the darkness, but because for a time we need the gifts of flame. Warmth and light to guide and help us in our endeavors. And when the time comes, we will embrace again the gentle dark, which allows us rest. And so we kindle this light with awareness and gratitude for light and dark and all that lies in between, each with its gifts, each with its beauty, each part of a sacred and necessary whole. And as we light the chalice, if you're lighting a chalice at home, you are encouraged to type in the chat box, chalice is lit. We will, hopefully we'll read that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So chalices are now lit all over the greater Kalamazoo area. Our story today is a story from the Yoruba religions. So those are religions of West Africa that then, because of forced abduction and enslavement, were carried into our Western hemisphere and are part of voodoo and Santeria and other traditions. So there's many versions of this story, and this is one of my favorites. It's called God's Hat. So one day, the god Eshu, who is a trickster god, put on his favorite hat and walked through the village. Its favorite hat was red on one side and black on the other, and he went walking through the main street of the village. The people were excited to see Eshu. It's not every day you get to see a god. And after he had walked through, they started talking about how amazing it was. And the people on the one side of the street said, oh, his red hat was so great and so beautiful. And the people on the other side of the street said, no, Eshu was wearing a black hat. And they said, no, red, black, red, black. Nobody stopped to ask any questions. Nobody stopped to wonder why this trickster god might be being a trickster. They just fought and they fought. And they eventually came to the point where they built a wall down the middle of their street and divided the village in two. One half believing that God's hat was red and the other half believing that God's hat was black. And then one day, generations later, after people have passed down this story about how God dresses to their children, Eshu came back. And Eshu wasn't wearing a hat this time. And so someone very bold said, Eshu, you came here before. What color was your hat that day? And Eshu said, oh, my favorite hat is red on one side and black on the other. And the people were humbled, and the children started laughing. And they started laughing so loud, and then the adults started laughing, and the elders started laughing, and everybody started laughing. And this laughter shook the walls of this town and shook that wall down the center until it crumbled. And the people learned. First, they learned not to trust Eshu about pretty much anything, but they learned to ask a question, to know that truth is more complicated than they thought it was. And truth depends on where you are. And that is our story today. People are generous people in so many ways. And over these last months, as we have gathered for worship from the sanctuary with a few people here in the Commons, but most of us on Zoom, I think with gratitude about Dave Curl. Dave Curl is a member, or was a member of our church, who died about 1.5 years ago. And 3 years ago, he gave the tremendous gift to this church of rebuilding our AV system. So it had been a patchwork, and sometimes functional and sometimes not so much. And he found the best people in town to put in this new screens, new microphones, new wires, new all of the things. And of course, none of us knew that live streaming and multi-platform would be what we would do. But he prepared us perfectly for this moment. While other congregations and other organizations have had to invest in a tremendous amount of new technology to try to do this work now and reach people in their homes and in person, we had to buy 2 cameras and a video switcher because the technology was already there for us, because Dave and his generosity set us up for this success. So it was not a small thing, and he had been devoted to the AV program of this church since before that we were even in this building. And every Sunday we live into his generous legacy. I am so grateful. Everybody who can do worship in any way right now at People's, we are all indebted to that. So this is where I invite you to continue to be the generous people that you are and support the good and important work of our congregation. And we know that generosity reverberates, as Dave's gift did, and will serve us well in the future in ways we can't even anticipate. So if you are joining us online, I invite you to follow the link to give. If you are in person, we have a donation box just right outside the Commons doors. So please give generously in all of the ways you are already generous. The offering will now be received.
Please join me in giving thanks for all that sustains us. From the countless gifts we have each been given, gifts of life and love and sustenance, we bring these small portions to share in the works of love, which none of us can accomplish alone.
People support one another in good times and hard times and in the middle sorts of times. And one of the ways that we do that is by taking time when we gather to share the joys and sorrows and milestones of our lives. So if you have something that you wish to share with our gathered community, if you are on Zoom, I invite you to type it into the chat box. If you are here in person, I invite you to write it on a note card and place it in the basket. I will read the joys and sorrows aloud, and Gordon will place stones in our bowl of water as a symbol for how both what impacts each of us ripples out to impact all of us, and that we help each other hold the joys and the sorrows together. So I pause recording, so this is not.
I invite you, as you are willing, into this time of meditation and reflection and into this practice of gratitude. If you like to write as a way of reflection, feel free to grab a journal or a piece of paper or something to write with. It's also okay just to find a comfortable position to sit in or stand in or whatever is most comfortable for you and your body to help you feel at ease. First, I invite you to take a few relaxing breaths. In and out. Feel free to close your eyes if that is most comfortable, or to leave them gently open. Breathe in a way that feels comfortable and relaxing. I invite you at first just to pay attention to your body. If there's a place of tension or pain, imagine breathing your breath into that part of your body. Imagine the breath sort of expanding that area of tension and then breathing out through that pain or tightness, feeling the muscles release with the out breath. With breathing in, sort of expand your attention in any area of tension. Breathe out through that area, letting the tension go. Breathing in through areas of tension. And out, letting go of that tension or pain if you can. Now I invite you to bring your attention to your heart space, to your chest, maybe your abdomen if you prefer. Again, just gentle breaths, breathing that feels natural and relaxing. And just be aware of anything that you're feeling. If you're feeling joy or calm and peace. If you're feeling sadness or grief or anxiousness, just be aware of it. Breathe alongside that feeling. Offer yourself compassion for whatever may be present to you right now. As you continue to breathe, ask yourself if there's anything or anyone you are feeling grateful for. Just ask yourself in your heart, what or who are you grateful for? Is there anyone who's caring for you, showing you care, inspiring you, comforting you? Anyone who you love, who you are grateful for? Hold that person, those people. Visualize them, hold them in the gratitude that you feel for them. Breathe in that feeling of gratitude. breathe out that gratitude for those loved ones. I invite you to just take a few more breaths. And as you do so, I invite you to think about anything about this day, anything that's happened, anything that you're looking forward to. If you have a window nearby, maybe you can see some sky or sun or tree or rain. Just be present to that. Take it in. Hold in your attention anything that you are grateful for from this day, that you're grateful to be looking forward to in this day. Anything that's present to you right now. I'm giving thanks for the sunshine after so much rain. Just hold that gratitude and that attention in your heart, in your mind, as you breathe in and out gently. Take a few more breaths and imagine just opening your heart space wide and asking if there's anything else you're grateful for. Their friends or community, faith, connections that you appreciate and feel attentive to. Open your heart to other things then in your life in this moment that you are feeling grateful for. Hold those in your attention. Breathe in that feeling of gratitude. Breathe in imagining or holding in your mind those people, those things, those connections. Breathe in that gratitude. It's also okay if some of our relationships are mixed with other emotions besides gratitude. Be present to that. Breathe it in. As you continue to breathe, just take a moment to hold in your attention all these connections, all these relationships, all these gifts that you are grateful for. Bring them to your attention again together. Breathe in the gratitude you feel. Breathe out gratitude across those connections. And as you are ready, as you continue to just breathe gently, you can bring your attention back to this time, to your body, to each other, gathered in meditation. And as we close, and as you breathe gently, maybe offer a word in silence or out loud or spoken Just a word of gratitude for these gifts. Blessed be, and amen.
The Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
And now a reading by Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf. This is a December Relational Health Advisory. A confluence of events has come together to create a season of potential miscommunication, reactivity, and disconnection. The normal season currents of grief during the holidays, colds, seasonal affective disorder, family trauma have met with jets of quarantine, COVID, political foolishness, working too many hours, failing to take off reasonable amounts of time, and grief over recent deaths. This is creating unsuitable conditions for communication. Expect higher chances of overwhelm, assumptions, heightened emotional response, and conflict for the next 3 to 6 weeks. Seriously, friends, we are in the heart of an overwhelming storm. None of us are operating at full capacity. Most of us are exhausted. I'm seeing lay religious leaders burned out and despairing because it is especially hard to serve right now. All of us are dealing with what was already a stressful time. The holidays, while amid pandemic and all that means. Online communication in all various forms can lead to miscommunication. I want us to remember back to the patience we had with one another when the pandemic started. This grace, patience, and care that we used then are the same tools we need now. A few things to keep in mind during this winter advisory. If you are feeling a strong reaction, take a beat. Remember that any emotions we're feeling right now are heightened. There is no hurry. Take 24 hours. Speak with a trusted person. Check in with people you need to check in with before you decide how to respond to anything that has you concerned or upset. If someone is proving challenging or you have a concern, assume that it was a miscommunication first. This is especially true with people who normally concern us or push our buttons. If we are not our optimal selves, you can be sure they are not. If it is someone you normally get along with, then really assume it is miscommunication. Talk to them and get some clarification. If You do not have to deal with it this month. Don't. Urgency is a normal response to anxiety and overwhelm. It is also dangerous and can cause more harm than good. Unless someone's life is at risk, there is a legal restriction or a structural reason that something needs to be handled right now, change the timeline. We all need care right now. If there was ever a time to put on your own oxygen mask, it's right now. This month will end. Until then, breathe, take your time, and do not give a lot of power to first emotions and first impressions. Emotions and reactions are a sign that something matters, but they can mislead you on how or why it matters. So go bravely and carefully forward. You are loved and you are not alone. Second reading is Dancers by Carl Dennis. At least one couple tonight at the Topaz Room may have quarreled on the long drive over in the rain about whether moving to a drier climate and making new friends would brighten their outlook. Still, they agree, for this evening at least, that dancing is something they're willing to try. Maybe tonight, for once, they'll be able to feel what they'd like to feel, that moving to music is an instance, not merely a metaphor of life lived as it should be lived. Other dancers may be more graceful, but among the clumsy, these two may have learned to look at their feet without embarrassment. And if they can't set aside all their differences, maybe they can agree tonight that consensus is the wrong model for them, too close for comfort in their private commonwealth to one-party rule, to tyranny. A dance they enjoy won't prove that division is far behind them, just that they're making their peace with it, as one defers when the other decides the tune has come from afar to find them here, where they ought to be, in the Topaz Room, taking one step forward, one step back.
Our final reading this morning is We Are Called by Derek Jackson. In these times, we are called to step into the mess and murk of life, called to be strong and vulnerable, called to console and to challenge, called to be grounded and hold lofty ideals, called to love in the face of hate. We are called, and it is not easy. And we will not always agree, and we will yell and scream and cry, and we will laugh and smile and sing. We are called to be together. There is so much work to do, and we cannot do it alone. We need one another, holding each other accountable to our covenants, to the holy, to love and justice. In these times, we are called.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope Jesus tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
I have another story for you this morning about Dave Curl, the man whose generosity prepared us for this multi-platform moment. Dave and I disagreed a lot about many things. He did not like it when I talked about God in services. He disagreed when the church was discussing offering sanctuary to someone who was undocumented several years ago. He didn't like some of the hard choices about budget cuts that church leaders have made over the years. He had much higher standards about AV than I probably could ever have. And in the time before the pandemic, when these things were possible, he would regularly stop by my office during the week to talk about these disagreements. At first, these conversations made me nervous. Then I grew to welcome them and even look forward to them. Dave was always kind and respectful, and it was moving and humbling to see his deep care for this church and its people, even if we disagreed about the particulars. I don't think we ever managed to change one another's mind, not even a little. But I came to learn that that wasn't the point, at least not for me. I won't speak for Dave. For me, the point was to listen and learn and understand. Dave was thoughtful and cared deeply about People's Church. And in talking, I learned more about him, but also more about my own values. Sometimes we understand ourselves better when we're in moderate conflict with someone else. And of course, this story is not only a story about Dave. There are others in the congregation who tell me when they disagree with me, who will make an appointment and show up to talk about how their values, which are similar to mine, lead them in a different direction. Or when they disagree with a choice that I or church leadership more broadly have taken. Sometimes in these conversations, my thinking changes, and sometimes it doesn't, but it is always a worthy conversation. I asked Dave's widow's permission to talk about what he taught me today, and I didn't reach out to the whole list of others who have come with their disagreements to me over the years, but know that I'm grateful for you as well. And at the end of one of these conversations with Dave, and I can't remember which disagreement we were talking through, I said, well, Dave, I don't think we're ever going to be on the same page about this. And Dave looked me right in the eye and said, we're not on the same page, but we are in the same book. We're not on the same page, but we are in the same book. And those words released a tension that I was holding about our disagreement, a fear that conflict would lead to rupture. This conflict was not like that. It was healthy. Neither of us were going to leave, and we were going to learn to live with that disagreement. And I think about those words from Dave all the time. With that simple phrase, he reframed the whole conversation. We weren't only in disagreement with each other, opposite parties in a dispute about language or about how to make the AV system work the best. We were united in the shared project that is People's Church of Kalamazoo. And we had differences about how to do that work. We're not on the same page, but we are on the same book. When I disagree with others about things now, I try to find that place of broader agreement that we share even in the midst of our disagreement. Often I can find that metaphorical shared book. Sometimes I can't. And that's an approach that I learned from Dave. I'm grateful to him and I commend it to all of you. Where is the shared book, even if you're on a different page? So of course, conflict is a big topic and I'm not going to address all of it today. It ranges from global, international conflicts to meeting up with someone and trying to decide where you want to grab a coffee or go for a walk when you have different opinions. It all needs to be negotiated. And today I'm focusing on conflicts between individuals and small groups among people who know each other. Because conflicts are a part of relationship. There is no way to go through this world with other humans alongside you and not have a conflict of one sort or another. And some conflict is necessary. There's some types of conflict that we could probably erase from the world and no one would be any worse for it, like strangers shouting at each other on the internet. But we need some conflict in our lives. Without disagreements, challenges, and differences, there is no space for growth. There's no learning. A few weeks ago, I stood here and for a service focused on cozy, and I named that we often need moderate discomfort to grow and change and learn. Moderate conflict, being in relationship with someone who disagrees with us about something important, or recognizing and exploring those conflicting impulses that we have within our own selves can provide that for us. Moderate, respectful conflict and disagreement is an opportunity to reflect on our actions and our beliefs and possibly change them. Conflict that doesn't escalate can be fruitful. We can't and we shouldn't be cozy all of the time. Without conflict, without opposition, we become like trees that cannot bear fruit. Author and church consultant Peter Steinke writes, in the biosphere in Arizona, a 3-acre greenhouse in the desert, people noticed that fruit was falling from the trees prematurely before it was ripe. What had happened? Inside this encapsulated environment, wind, a force that challenges the tree's branches and strengthens them, is absent. Without wind, the branches do not gain sufficient strength to hold the fruit till the time of maturation. Sometimes we are like trees in need of the moderate challenge of wind, not a tornado of conflict, to help us be strong enough to live in the world in fruitful ways. So my conversations with Dave Curl were like the wind in my life for a season. And I hope you have people in your circles who are the wind for you. Dave and other people, both in the congregation and beyond, who seek me out for conversation about our disagreements, they don't have to take that time. They could ignore disagreements and conflicts or vent to someone else. And that people take the time and the risk to speak is an act of loyalty to a relationship, to a community, to our own integrity. Disagreements about important things are inevitable. And we at People's Church are committed to the idea that we can believe very different things about some of the most fundamental questions and be rooted in shared values, be on the same book, and show up for each other in hard times and do the hard work of transforming ourselves and transforming the world. This is a wildly ambitious project, and there is no way to do it without some conflict. As the poem I read earlier said, we are called, and it is not easy, and we will not always agree, and we will yell and scream and cry, and we will laugh and smile and sing. We are called to be together. There is so much work to do, and we cannot do it alone. But it is not just in our congregation, of course, that conflict is inevitable. any relationship, romance, friendship, coworker, any group working on a shared endeavor at work, a family, a neighborhood, conflict and disagreement will come. And then we are faced with the choice. Do we lean into it and engage it and have hard conversations and see what we can learn? Or do we avoid it? Much of the time we are called to lean into it, as that is the path of integrity and growth. It is also an act of faith and loyalty to the people that we are connected to. In a podcast released last summer, soccer player Abby Wambach, her wife, author Glennon Doyle, and Glennon's sister Amanda spoke about conflicts in their relationships. And Amanda said, conflict resolution is one of the greatest things that you can accomplish in your life and in your relationship. When I view people not bringing a conflict up, I think it's being unfaithful to the relationship. I think it's an abdication of your role in the relationship. They're just like, you know what? I tried that for 7 years and not a thing changed and I'm done. And that's when you get in scary places in your relationships. She continues, when I catch myself not bringing up conflict, I think that's a red flag. It's an atrophy of the relationship because it's an investment. The willingness to bring conflict to the table, to make yourself vulnerable, shows a faith in your relationship, an investment in a relationship, a belief that your relationship could be better than it is. And if you do not bring conflict to the table, you are saying, my relationship is never going to get better. It's going to be the same every day, over and over. In the story from earlier, Dave would not let a relationship atrophy, wither, become weaker. It's not just Dave, though. Every time we talk through a disagreement, even and probably especially when it's not resolved in a satisfying way, we are investing in relationships and working to make ourselves and our relationships better. This is hard work, and often we don't get to have an audience cheering us on as we do it. Know that it is valuable and worthy of your time. This week, the Church Bylaws Committee finished their final draft of a proposal for a major bylaws revision for our church. Check your This Week at People's Church email and the website for the details. And they have been working hard at this for over 2 years, engaging in a lot of conflict and exploration and loyalty to each other and to this institution. It's an excellent piece of work. And I expect and maybe even hope that we will have some moderate conflict about this document. There are 253 members of this church and probably at least 253 opinions if everybody sat and looked at this document. And so this is a moment where I hope we can choose to lean into those disagreements and learn from them. Speak the truth, listen to understand, be open to others' ideas that might change our mind or make our own positions clearer. There will be some disagreements that won't be neatly reconciled, and that will be fine, maybe even good. We might not be on the same page, but we are in the same book. So the board will be beginning to figure out how we can have a congregational meeting given the constraints of this era at their meeting this week. And so pay attention to your church communications and engage in this process. The church bylaws are a really important document. We are committed to democratic processes, and this outlines how we do that. So this church at its best is a place where we can practice how to have conversations across difference, where we can talk to people who disagree with us about important things and know that we are in the same book. And we can take those skills into the wider world where we talk to people with whom we don't share a bond of union or a set of 7 principles. Because Dave and others have trusted me with disagreement and given me practice in this community and other communities in my life, I recently engaged in a difficult conversation in another part of my life. So one of my neighbors is a pastor at an evangelical church, and our kids share a bus stop. So we see each other pretty regularly, almost every morning. We chit chat, but hadn't really talked about anything of substance. And I had been holding back, I admit. Once I learned the name of his church, I went on its website and saw some things. I saw that there were a few pastors and none of them were women, which always makes me a little nervous. I saw some statements of faith and opinions on various social issues that are not mine. It felt like, he knows that God's hat is one color and I think God's hat is something else. Or maybe God doesn't even have a hat. And I could start to feel that relationship atrophy because there's only so many times I can ask somebody about their weekend without talking about something real. And we have years at the same bus stop ahead of us. So I wanted to be able to talk to him about something a little bit more significant than what television shows our children are watching. And I realized I was making a tremendous amount of assumptions about him based on a website that I read. And so I thought about what to say and how to remain curious. I made sure to heed some of the advice about the December relational advisory. So this happened in November. I waited for a morning where I wasn't hungry or stressed or overwhelmed with my to-do list. And on a morning, after the kids got on the bus, I said, I've been doing some work with other clergy in town with Outfront, which is the LGBTQ community center. And would your church's teachings on human sexuality allow you to be part of some of this work? And I can't say that the conversation from there was amazing. He's not my new best friend. But it was true and it was respectful. And I learned more of his story and his beliefs, which were more nuanced than a website led me to believe. He's interested in some of the work that we do with Isaac. And so I'm working to connect him there. And as for human sexuality, he's not going to show up at a Pride booth at any time soon. But he was willing to learn more about some of the work that Outfront is doing to keep LGBT kids from ending up homeless, because we know locally that the reason that our young people end up homeless is often because of conservative Christianity. When they come out or are forced out, they are thrown out of the house, or the house becomes, or their home becomes so inhospitable to them that leaving for homelessness feels like a better option. So we agreed on very little. But we do think that it's bad for kids to be homeless. And that's maybe one of the broadest books that you could ever find in the world, because I don't think there's very many people cheering on youth homelessness. But it is a shared book. And I passed my neighbor's contact information along to the person who's heading this homelessness prevention project. And she's hoping that because he's has his toe more in an evangelical world, he might help her get access to the people who most need to have these conversations about how you support your kids and who they are. So it was hard. I'm feeling like the tension in my body, even remembering it. And it was honest. And from my perspective, our relationship is stronger for it. We're not going to be best friends, but our kids might share some play dates and that will feel okay. And the connection isn't atrophy. Having conversations about important things no longer feels impossible. And that's a victory of sorts, at least. And in the real world of conflict and disagreements and differences, I think these small victories are really about all we get. most of the time. You can't usually raise a point and have someone say, oh, yeah, I am changing my whole worldview to agree with you right now. But I wish we got that sometimes. This week, another neighbor told me that building community and building a better world is doing 1,000 things that no one notices over and over and over again, which I love and which feels true. And engaging with conflict is only one of the 1,000 things. But it matters to talk to people who are different and talk about the difference, taking the risk to speak our truth and have patience to listen well to others, understanding each other better at the very least, even if we aren't changing any hearts or minds. And knowing that some differences might not ever be reconciled, and seeking where there is a place of shared connection and concern and partnership. It is hard, but it is worthy. So may we be thoughtful about conflict, especially in this season of heightened emotion, heightened expectations, heightened anxiety. And may we show our loyalty to one another and our communities by having hard conversations. May we speak, listen, and be open to learning and transformation. May it be so. May we make it so. And amen.
I need you, you need me, we're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me, we're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I need you. You need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I pray for you, you pray for me. I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to survive. I pray for you, you pray for me. I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to survive. I pray for you, you pray for me. I love you, I need you to survive. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive.
The work before us is to do 1,000 tiny things over and over and over again to transform ourselves and transform the world. So I invite you in this season that is harder than most for many of us for all kinds of reasons, to be gentle with yourself and true to your heart and loyal to the people that you love. Let us go in peace and go in love.